First topic of discussion on the show today, the Society for Corporate Governance in Nigeria, under the leadership of its chairman, Mr. Mohammed K. Ahmed, has officially announced the 2024 Annual Corporate Governance Conference, scheduled for Thursday, October the 10th, 2024. The event will be conducted in a hybrid format, offering both physical attendance at Victoria Island, Lagos, and virtual participants via live stream. Of course, this year's conference will focus on the theme, Corporate Survival and Sustainability, the new face of governance, addressing the crucial role of corporate governance that corporate governance plays in ensuring business resilience amid global disruptions, economic uncertainties, and increasing regulatory demands. The annual Corporate Governance Conference is widely regarded as Nigeria's leading forum for corporate governance discourse, which brings together board directors, C-suite executives, regulators, investors, and key stakeholders from across all sectors. Well, let's get talking ahead of this very important event. I have joining me live via Zoom from Abuja, the president, and that's Mr. Mohammed Ahmed, is the president of the Society of Corporate Governance Nigeria. And live in the studio here with me, I have the managing director, chief executive officer of the Society for Corporate Governance Nigeria, Mrs. Chioma Modi. Good afternoon. It's good to have you here. Good afternoon, President. It's good to have you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity for both Chioma and I to interact with you today. Thank you.
Great. Let's start with you telling us about the workings and activities of the Society for Corporate Governance under your leadership. How have you fared so far?
Thank you. Well, I believe the jury is out there, but we are a society largely established for the purpose of promoting and institutionalizing strong corporate governance, both in public and private sector. To date, we've been in existence for almost 2 decades. We have over 1,000 members. We have provided services to over 100 both public and private entities. And of course, we have trained over 20,000 directors, shareholders, and other compliance officers. So basically what we do is to promote best practices in corporate governance. And this is exactly what we do as a society.
Well, a good way to start. Let me ask the CEO, you want to say something also about the society before we move to the conference?
Absolutely.
Yes.
For having us. The president, the society has been in existence since 2003, and we started operations in 2009. Basically, we are a not-for-profit organization that drives corporate governance best practices and board effectiveness. So we do that through different services and offerings. We train directors of different organizations, and we also are very big on research-based advocacy. So we have a lot of publications around corporate governance, both for directors and also for company secretaries, who are the people we call the custodians of corporate governance.
Interesting stuff. Now, Mr. President, the annual Corporate Governance Conference is widely regarded as Nigeria's leading forum for corporate governance discourse. I talked about those expected to be at this event. Tell us about previous conferences. Do you make recommendations to public or private sector players, or even government?
Well, as a society, we bring stakeholders together on an annual basis. And at the end of the day, we come up with specific recommendations. And I'm happy to report, given our robust relationship with various regulatory agencies, the Financial Reporting Council, which is our primary regulator, the Central Bank of Nigeria, Securities and Exchange Commission, and other related regulatory entities, we've had an excellent relationship. But we also have an excellent relationship with other professional bodies and an institute, and they've also been supporting us, given the fact that corporate governance is key to business survival. So I think to a larger extent, we believe this year's forum is to build on what we have achieved in the last 2 decades. Thank you.
And I also like to tell us about what's been happening in this conference. I asked, have you been making recommendations, and what's the takeout of the ones you've had before now?
Absolutely. We have been making great recommendations to industry players, especially in the private sector and also the government. So some of the key recommendations we've made in the past is the need to strengthen corporate governance practices across all industry. Yeah. We've also highlighted board effectiveness through diversity. We feel that diversity on the board leads to board effectiveness. Another area that we have also focused on is on the conference is on ESG. ESG for us is very important, and we've been pushing the narrative on the need to comply with some of these ESG practices and also to align with the business strategy. So those are kind of takeaways, that recommendations that we've given to the industry players in the past conferences.
Makes real sense. Mr. President, back to you in Abuja. This year's conference will focus on the theme, I read through that, corporate survival and sustainability, the new face of governance, which is aimed at addressing the crucial role corporate governance plays in ensuring business resilience amidst global disruptions. We know what's happening globally and even in our country. Why are you going with this theme at this time?
I think for us as a society, and given our interaction with our members as well as other regulatory agencies, we believe we need to equip our members to be prepared to face those business challenges. Of course, beyond that is the need for us to focus on ESG, which, as you're aware, is topical and is also real, and is something that goes beyond just expressing sentiments, but taking concrete steps. And that's why in our various evaluation on an annual basis of various corporate practices, we try to find out to what extent our ESG has been focused on and what framework has it been. And as we are aware, corporate governance is about journey. So we're starting a journey, we're building a culture, we're influencing culture, and we hope and pray over the years we should be able to have a very strong corporate governance that will support and also address our challenges. So we hope we share our experiences, both within and outside the country, with our members, with a view to adopting a more robust framework for the purpose of ensuring that corporate governance remains a priority as an entity.
You want to talk about the theme? I know that's really touching. You know, looking at it, it's apt. Yeah. Corporate survival and sustainability, the new face of governance. I hear a lot about corporate governance because I have happened to interact with Dr. Rabi Olowo, who's the FRC Executive Secretary, and I see the push around that. So why this theme at this time?
Thank you, Tolu. I think stating that the theme is apt is really, I must re-emphasize that it's apt.
Yeah, it is.
Given a lot of economic challenges that we face, not only in Nigeria, but we've seen globally. For us, we want to see how we can connect the dots from the practice of corporate governance and surviving these issues that we have as businesses in terms of, and also by extension, the economy at large. So what we want to do with the theme is just basically to have a discussion around the connection between corporate governance best practices and surviving or business sustainability, like we call it. So I think for us, that's why we thought about what can capture, the experiences of businesses and stakeholders. And we thought that this will just capture it. And it's a new face. It's a new face of governance.
It's indeed a new face of governance. Mr. President, tell us more about what to expect at this conference. I also see that it's not just for fiscal participation.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. I think for us, is to sit down and discuss insight or highlights of what corporate governance and sustainability is all about, and perhaps to come up with specific actionable points that will say, perhaps we need to focus on these particular areas to engage both companies and regulators with the view to ensuring that we focus on economic recovery and to what extent can we support our businesses, business innovation, insight, improving in corporate governance, and at the same time across the various sectors to see that, yes, moving forward, these are the things that we need to focus on to ensure that we have a very strong corporate governance. So that's the expectation.
Talking again about corporate governance, Mr. President, I'm still staying with you now. How would you assess the concept of corporate governance in Nigeria?
I think we've started a journey, and if you recall, as far back as 2000 and 2018, the Financial Reporting Council started a process. We first had our first Corporate Governance Act for the private sector largely, and that has to do with the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018. To date, the Financial Reporting Council is working on a code for SMEs as well as the public sector, which is another major challenge. In other words, the public sector, referring to both the federal, subnationals, and local government, they also need to have a corporate governance. And we hope very soon the Financial Reporting Council, through the support of various committees, will come up with it. So we believe it's a journey we've started, and hopefully very soon the various sectors of the Nigerian economy would be guided by that sector, because the issue is simple. How do you get strong corporate governance? How do you get organized? And I can tell you, when we started that with the private sector, it was very easy. And today we are proud to say, and I believe Financial Reporting Council will testify to that the private sector, including even small institutions, are keen and have religiously been complying with the various corporate governance, in addition to, of course, listed companies and other large companies. So we've started a journey, and I believe we should be able to also extend the benefit we've gained in the private sector also to the private sector by the time, to the public sector by the time we have a clearly defined code of corporate governance. As we are aware, code of corporate governance is about behavior. In other words, how do we behave? And how would you want to comply with an issue without somebody knocking at your door? Or perhaps somebody saying, hey, you are supposed to do this, you have not done that. How do you make it as part of your DNA? And I think this is what all of us are aspiring, first as a society and also as a country, that it's much easier and that somebody doesn't need to get worried that he's going to be sanctioned for not complying. And as you are aware, the private sector has done very well, and we hope and pray will build on what they have done. Thank you.
Interesting. You want to say something around concept of corporate governance before we wrap up?
Absolutely. And for me, just to reemphasize what the president has said, that we have really done well in terms of corporate governance in the private sector. There's awareness. So there's no doubt about it. People understand the concept. People try to comply with the framework by the FRCN. But again, we are now moving it ahead, one step further to other sectors, like the public sector, just like the president said. And we are happy that the regulators are taking steps to develop a framework that will cover those sectors
of Nigerian economy. All right, then, as we wrap this up now, Mr. President, as a group pushing for corporate survival and sustainability, indeed, what are your challenges as a society? Do you need support from government? If you are getting, let's know. And if you are not getting, what sort of support do you need?
Thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. I think number one for us is creating awareness for the benefit of corporate governance. Nigerians and perhaps business practitioners need to know that it pays to be a very strong corporate governance compliant. It's not about the fact that Financial Reporting Council said we should do A, B, C, D. That is in the interest of the business. And in any case, nobody does business with you if they believe that you don't have a strong corporate governance. The second issue is that to what extent can we comply voluntarily? That becomes the issue. But in the event that perhaps for whatever reason, some of us decided not to comply, what are those sanctions? So how do we ensure consistent enforcement of those sanctions? I think it's a challenge, basically, that we need to also address. But beyond that, I think our main focus now is on the public sector. Honestly, we need to ensure that there is accountability, there is transparency, to ensure that at least we have a sustainable development. Now, for the public sector, given the fact that, unlike the private sector, where I have a lot of disclosure, we must also, in addition to having a court, ensure that as a sector, we are as open as possible. We must give opportunity to Nigerians to know what is happening at the various tiers of government. So in other words, disclosure or full disclosure become extremely important. When you know what I'm doing, you're in a position to challenge me. If I decide to hide certain things, then it becomes a problem. So for us, is that to what extent can we promote transparency in what we do? what extent can we be accountable as a public sector practitioners that, yes, this is what I am. As you see me, this is how I look like, and I have not. And you have every reason to ask questions, regardless of who you are. You may be just an ordinary taxpayer or any other person, or perhaps you may not even be a Nigerian. So it is important that we build that issue, particularly in the public sector. And of course, obviously, it's important that across the various sectors, we continue to promote and build that strong corporate governance. So we're hoping with the support of government, and as you are aware, what the Financial Reporting Council did was to say, hey, compliance is virtually that of the practitioner, but we also have professional associations, whether they are accountant, lawyers, or other institutions, is their own, or regulators, their own responsibility to ensure that there is compliance. And therefore, they have taken that compliance to those institutions that are within the various sectors. And for me, this is a novel, and this is extremely important. But beyond that, as practitioners, it is our responsibility that we ensure that we have a very strong corporate governance. And that is what market discipline is all about. And thank you.
All right, thank you so much. The parting shot from you.
A parting shot will be that the conference, the annual corporate governance conference, scheduled to hold on the 10th. For the lineup of speakers, is something we should take note of. We have speakers from different regulatory institutions. We have speakers from the international fairs, which will be sharing perspective from that global outlook. And we also have a core board members, those they call core board professionals or boardroom experts. They'll be sharing their experience about the subject of corporate governance and business sustainability. So for me, I would say come one, come all.
I must thank you so much. It's really good to have you in the studio. Mrs. Chioma Mordi is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Society for Corporate Governance Nigeria, and the President who joined us from Abuja. And that's Mr. Muhammad Ahmad. He's the President, Society for Corporate Governance Nigeria. Thank you so much. Have a great event. We surely will be there.
Thank you.